Hello folks, this is Fluorescent FIFA, here for some more tips and tricks. At long last we have the long awaited, I hope, tutorial on aiming. So this video is basically about some basics of aiming on manual controls. So if you've just heard the words manual controls and don't have a clue what I mean, go to the description below, there's video links in there where I explain everything. And if you are here and you know what manual controls are and you want to see the aiming tutorial, then let's get on with it. Okay, firstly, thank you to the guys who left comments on the previous tutorial with some constructive criticism, some advice. You guys said you wanted to see more footage, more sort of gameplay while I'm talking, so here you go. Secondly, this video is in two parts. This is a two-parter because this one is kind of some basic stuff, some stuff that I know works, that's really quite easy to demonstrate and to explain. And the second part is going to be a bit more experimental. I'm not entirely certain whether or not the advice in that one will work, but I'm going to give that a go. But this part I'm fully confident about, and I know the things in this part definitely work. So we will get on with it. The first thing I need to explain is how aiming actually works, because if you don't understand how it works, you're not going to be able to do it properly. So what I said in the introduction video, the very first video in the tips and tricks series, was that the ball goes precisely where you aim on the analog stick. And now this is pretty much true all of the time, but what I didn't actually mention in that was that the ball goes where you hold on the analog stick relative to the camera that you are using. So if I give you an example now of what I mean, if I do a quick practice match in the arena and I use the telecamera, if I hold vertically downwards on the analog stick and pass the ball on the telecamera, the ball goes vertically downwards. So it's always relative, the direction is always relative to the camera you're facing. If I hold vertically upwards on the analog stick on the telecamera, you can see the ball goes vertically upwards. However, if I change to a different camera, let's say the broadcast camera, and then I go down the pitch, and if I now hold vertically upwards, you can see how the player's running at a bit more of an angle. And the further I go down the pitch, if I now hold upwards, he's running at a much more extreme angle. So when you're aiming on manual, the ball goes relative to the direction you hold on the analog stick, which is relative to the way your camera is facing. Now what this means is that when you play on manual controls, you need to choose a camera that suits you in terms of what you find easiest for aiming. Now that might not be the camera you use at the minute if you're just switching over to manual controls. You might want to experiment with a few different ones to see what suits you best. I would personally recommend, to begin with, if you're just starting with manual controls, I would recommend the telecamera. The reason for that being is it stays consistent all the way down the pitch. If you hold vertically up on the halfway line, the ball will go vertically up. If you hold vertically up right by a goal line, the ball will still go vertically up on the camera. So you'll probably find it easiest to get going with that compared to some other cameras which move around a little bit. Once you get used to it, you'll find it much easier to change between cameras, and some people might find it easy anyway to use tele-broadcast or broadcast or co-op or whatever, but that is my first major piece of advice if you're new to manual, is to use the tele-camera just to get used to aiming properly, and you'll probably find it easier to aim properly if you do that. So the first piece of advice I'm going to give about how to actually aim on manual controls ties in quite well with the previous tip about the camera. This piece of advice is most useful if you are using a camera where you find it really easy to judge the direction the player is running in. If you're on manual controls and you are running in a certain direction with a player, and if you continue to hold that direction when you press the pass button or the cross button or the shoot button or whatever, the ball is going to go pretty much dead on the direction that you were running. So my first piece of advice is make your player face in the direction that you want to play the ball. So in other words, if you want to aim dead at the corner flag, make your player run at the corner flag. If I give an example in the arena, so if I say running non-goal with Adebayor, and if I try and shoot for the corner, if I make sure that I'm running to face the corner of the goal and then shoot, you can see how the ball goes in the net because I'm holding the same direction as I'm running, and if I'm running at the corner, the ball's going to go in the corner. If I try and demonstrate again with Van der Vaart on the other side, so if I try and aim for the far corner, and if I run in, and if I make sure that I'm aiming for the corner and then shoot, you can see that the ball goes into the corner of the net. So It's a really useful thing if you can to run in the direction or walk in the direction that you want to play the ball. This is especially useful for passing and really useful for shooting. So what this means, if I take the example of shooting again, if I put it in a match situation, if you say want to shoot for the corner of the goal, what you need to do is, in as few touches as possible so that you don't get tackled or things don't get blocked, you need to try and turn to face the corner simply for the most reliable way of placing the ball. So if I take this example here, I'm using Borussia Dortmund. As I play the ball to Kagawa here, I already know that I'm going to try and take one touch and shoot for the corner of the goal. So what I do is I try and make sure with my first touch with Kagawa that I try and face the corner of the goal. That way I can know that if I see on the camera that I am facing the corner of the goal, I know if I hold the same direction, then that's where the ball's going to go. So all I need to do is get the power right just to keep the shot down. And as you can see in this example here, I managed to put it right in the corner. So what you can do in match situations is, if you've got the chance, try and take a touch to make sure you're aiming the right way so that you can see that you're aiming the right way. Hold the same direction, and that way you know where the ball's going to go. But a quick word of warning on using this tactic. If you have the time when shooting, that's fine, that's great, because the AI goalkeeper is not going to react to the fact that you're aiming for the corner, so they know you're going to try and aim for the corner, if that makes sense. The goalkeeper's going to treat it as if you could shoot anywhere, which you still can if you want to. If you want to face one corner and try and shoot for the other, there's nothing to stop you doing that. But the most reliable way to try and shoot for a corner is to make sure you're already facing the corner. However, with passing, this is a slight issue. Against the AI, it's not too much of a problem, because again, the AI is not going to think, because he's facing this way, that has to be the way he's going to play the ball. But if you play online, especially against people who are quite experienced on manual, if you face the direction you want to play the ball for a pass, it makes it very, very obvious what you're going to do. So, whilst if you're in a situation where you're in plenty of space, and you've easily got the time to play the pass, and you just want to make sure it's reliable, that's not a problem. But if you're trying to play quite quickly, or if you're in sort of narrow gaps, you've got to try not to make it obvious what you're going to do. So that would be a kind of situation where I wouldn't recommend this. But in terms of some basics of getting aiming right on passes and shots, this is a piece of advice I guarantee works, and it really surprises me that a lot more people don't do this. I play some people who do this a lot. I will do this all the time with shooting. I will always try and make sure I'm facing the way I want to go, so that I know that I'm facing the right way, I'm going to aim the right way. So if you don't already do that, that is a really, really useful piece of advice, which should make your aiming a lot more reliable. And the last piece of advice I'm going to give in this video is very much linked to the previous one. What you can do is, if you're in a situation where either you've tried to turn to face the goal and you realise you've turned the wrong way, or if you're just in a situation where you don't have time to turn and face the direction you want to play the ball, then what you can do is use the direction that the player is going as a gauge. So if I give an example in the arena to try and demonstrate what I mean, basically what I'm saying is that if you know that your aim is slightly off, because you can tell from the way that the player is running with the ball, then you can adjust appropriately based on that. So if I'm in a situation here where I want to pass it to Bale, I knock it in this direction, I know my aim's slightly off, so I have to adjust it in order to play it to Bale's feet. Similarly, if I were to go down the wing and I were to try and cross it, I can see here I'm not going to cross it into the box if I keep holding that direction, so I have to drag it back to Adebayor. So you get the idea. So to quickly summarise the bits of advice in this video, which I hope you guys will find helpful. Some of you might think that some of them are really, really obvious, but some people I've definitely come across definitely do not do these things, and I honestly think they're really helpful. So hopefully you guys have found these helpful. So just to summarise, firstly, make sure you pick a camera that suits you, that you find easy to judge direction on. That will vary person to person, but you need to maybe try a few different ones to see what suits you. I recommend Telly to begin with if you're new to manual, but you might have another preference, and if you do, that's fine. Secondly, to make sure you're aiming in the right direction, the easiest way to do it is to make sure your player faces in the direction you want to play the ball, because that way you can see where you're aiming, and if you continue to hold the direction you're running, you know where the ball's going to go. It's not always applicable, you can't always use that, but it's especially useful for shooting if you've got the time. It can also be pretty useful for passing. And attached to that, if you're running in a direction, use that as a gauge of where you need to adjust the analog stick. in order to get your pass in the right direction, because you will find it much easier to play accurate passes if you sort of think about, you know where you're going if you hold the direction you're holding at the minute, which way do I need to adjust the analog stick in order to get it right. So hopefully those things will help. However, those are generally centered around aiming when you've got plenty of time on the ball. Obviously, you do not always have plenty of time on the ball, and you will sometimes maybe either want to just play some quick tempo stuff, or you will have to pass it quickly to avoid being tackled or whatever. So the next video is I'm going to try and explain just simply how to aim accurately in general. It's a very difficult thing for me to try and explain, but I'm going to have a go, and we will see how that goes. That will be the next video. It will be along very soon. With regard to this video, if you could please let me know what you think, leave me some feedback. Hopefully the guys who said they wanted more footage, hopefully this was a much better version for you. If you like this format, please let me know. If you think there's anything that needs adjusting, tell me, because I am all ears and I do take comments on board to try and improve my videos. But I hope this was helpful. If you enjoyed it and found it useful, if you could click like, that would be fantastic. If you can leave a comment, just let me know what you think, that would be great. If you're not already subscribed, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and I will see you very soon in part 2. Play manual!